Good day, viewers. Welcome to a new edition of 30 Minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television with me, Manir Dan Ali. Our guest today is the Africa Director of MacArthur Foundation, one of those non-profit organizations operating in Nigeria and supporting all sorts of causes. And I'm talking of Dr. Kole Shettima. Doctor, welcome to the program. I know you don't like the doctor a bit, but...
Thank you very much, Munir. Yes. Thank you very much for bringing me here as well. Thank you.
Yes. I want us to take a deep dive into this area of philanthropy. I know that there are lots of people who are interested in why do big U.S. philanthropists, I'm talking of like your own foundation, MacArthur Foundation, Bill Gates Foundation, and others. Why are they interested in doing good in Africa at this time?
Well, that's a very big question, which is very interesting that, MacArthur was set up by John MacArthur and then his wife, Catherine.
Who were they?
They were, actually, interestingly, they were into newspapers. They were into banking and insurance. And actually, he made most of his money from banking and insurance. That's what he made. And at that time, the innovation that he brought, which now nobody thinks about as innovation, was just simply to tell his people that, look, let's hire marketers and go door to door and sell insurance to people. Instead of us sitting down in our office and waiting for them to come, let's go and sell insurance. And that was how John MacArthur made his money. And then, of course, he built he built hotels, especially in Florida and other things. But he was a very, very, in some ways, weird person in the sense that, people who go to the hotel, they think that he's a janitor in the place.
Because he's there serving people.
He was.
I think he is one of the.
He was. They think that he was one of the janitors. Yes. He was dressed shabbily. He didn't care about anything, and so nobody actually even believed that this man had this kind of wealth. So by the time around his death, the only thing that he said was that, look, I have figured out how to make money.
And made tons of money.
Tons of money, of course. Yeah. And then he said, then he brought his friends and two of his children, and he said, look, you figure it out how to spend the money. So that was the only thing he said. That's the only instruction he said. But one of the reasons why I think a number of people also set up foundations, of course, one is that they want to do good things in the world and other things. But there's also a tax incentive in the system in the United States and other things.
That is the U.S. tax system favors those who give out.
Who give out, So, for example, if you set up a foundation and other things, there's a portion of your wealth that will not be, which is considered as tax exempt. So you are not going to be taxed because of that one. So one strategy of really trying to maintain your wealth is try to give to other people, because you are going to get the tax break, and therefore you are not going to be taxed as other people in society and other things.
And we're talking of a society where the tax system is very efficient.
Yeah.
Unlike here where you hide your money, you see that our billionaires pay maybe less than what a level 4 officer who works in a government office.
Exactly. Less than what you pay, I'm sure, for that matter. So I think that is one of the reasons why the tax system is made in a way that will encourage philanthropy and other things. And of course also that I think there is also a sense of, for many people, that really they have made wealth and they really want to give back to society. And I think some of them might also be driven by their religious beliefs that, look, God have given them and endowed them with all this wealth, and therefore they want to give it back to humanity. And also some people, by the nature of the society that they grow up in others, and maybe some people are, from a very poor family background.
They want to give opportunities
to other people who are less privileged and other things. So there are so many reasons why I believe that in places, especially in the United States, which I think actually there is no any other place that you can actually compare to the US when you're looking at philanthropic endeavors and opportunities.
But in Nigeria, like in Islam, I know there is what is called waqf, which is close to foundation.
Foundations, yes.
Why is it not working here? Why maybe people prefer to follow the strict Islamic injunction of just the wealth being divided according to their heirs and not putting up a foundation? And still recently when you have Dangote, you have Abdul Samad Rabi, Isiaka Rabi also setting up foundations.
I think that especially in the Maliki school, I'm not sure what is there in the Maliki school, in West Africa especially. You don't find this tradition of workups being established across the West African horizon. But if you look at places like Cairo, Morocco, a number of the Middle East countries, you see there are numbers of those workup. And if you remember, some of the most important universities in Cairo, Al-Azhar and others, were really built on the workup that have been established by families who gave money and left behind land, farms, resources, and said, look, now, whatever the process from this one, goes to this university, and that is how this university became so well endowed. And I think that, I don't know what has to do with, whether there's something has to do with the Maliki school that is
or
not
maybe
there.
It's cultural. People
and also
prefer that,
cultural.
Okay, just their heirs inherit whatever.
But I think
left.
one of the things that actually has now actually come up in the last maybe 20 years or so, especially with this wave of Sharia around 2000 and so, I think that there are many, at least at the governmental level, many of the state governments have been trying to establish workup institutions in many places, like the one in Sokoto, which have been doing very well in my view in terms of giving scholarship to unfortunate people and other things. So there are these institutions that are happening, and I think in February there's actually going to be a very big conference at Bayero University, Kano, on workup, the institution of workup and zakat in Nigeria. Which
so
I'm
that
sure
may well maybe ginger up people and open up the opportunities in those areas, which in some ways may make them less suspicious about why Americans are giving so much money. Because I understand, if we go back to your own foundation, MacArthur, it has given, or it has a budget of over $200 million a year, and it has so far spent maybe over $7 billion.
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes, and it's also growing because what happens is that the endowment of the foundation is invested and reinvested and reinvested all the time.
So it's still making more
money,
which means it's unlikely to run out of money to give.
Unless the board of trustees agree that, look, we want to end the foundation or something. I think that at this point we can say it's for perpetuity. Because even I think in the first few years, all the children of MacArthur were no longer involved. I think only one of his child actually was involved in the setting of the foundation. The other one was not interested about it at all. Then the one who was on the board of the foundation also left for a few years. So since that time, for the last number of years, really, the foundation is just governed by board of trustees who are independently elected by their peers, and every staff of the foundation is hired by the foundation, and all of us are employees and other things. So I think that so that gives you the other thing. And I think that you went back to you mentioned about zakat and workup and other things, but there is a tradition of the Prophet which said that there are three things, if you die, will continue to linger, and they are there exactly
will serve you even after
you. And one of them is writing books so that people can read what you said, having children who would continue to pray for you, but also establishing a workup that will continue to do the good things that you have been doing even after your death. And I say, so this is a very important, a good tradition that have been established. But I think part of it also is that I think, Munir, maybe our people actually are very generous people. They are very generous
but
people.
Maybe not in a systematized way.
Exactly, that's where the problem is. I think the problem is that's where it is. So, for example, on many occasions, I ask people, do you know Abiola? When I talk about workup, sometimes I talk about, do you know Abiola? And people have no idea who Abiola was and other things.
Yeah, that's Moshehud Kashimao Abiola,
who was one of the
presumed winner of the 1993 election. And before that, one of the richest Nigerians.
Exactly, or Africans actually around. At that time,
Yes.
And he was such a very generous people in terms of giving scholarship, building mosques, building churches, supporting everything, supporting sports and I think. But unfortunately, he died, and then all the good thing that he was doing died with him. And I think that is a lack of institutionalization of that institution of giving, of philanthropy. I think that's where the problem is. Otherwise, you can hear of people in different communities actually, building schools and building wells and establishing so many things. Unfortunately, all this didn't done as individuals. And
only probably when they are alive, and when they die, the whole thing crashes.
Exactly.
But will it be different, will say the Dangote and the Abdul Samad foundations, because they've established foundations? I don't know what the arrangement is, but there is some portion of money that is being funneled to them. I don't know whether they are investing so that even after Dangote or Abdul Samad may not be around, those foundations can continue.
Well, I'm hoping that they have done that one, or they will do that one. Now, even with Dangote, it was really an evolution. Evolution in the sense that at some point his own giving was more of what you may call CSR. I mean, that is corporate social responsibility.
Yes.
So it was more about the Dangote group of companies
doing
something for communities as social responsibility. Gradually, I think they are trying to establish an independent organization. Of course, the family members are still there. There are other people who are there. And we hope that at some point they will make a decision and say that, look, we are bequeathing this amount of resources to the foundation, and that even in subsequent years, whenever we get whatever we get, percentage of that one should go to the foundation. Then you can have an investment committee of the foundation that runs the place. You have people that he trusts to run the foundation for him and other things. If you remember, T.Y. Anjuma also had the same. He also established a foundation. He announced, I think, about $100 million or so as the seed of the foundation itself.
Right.
So you can see all these initiatives that are being there, but what we hope eventually is for them to have some independent source of investment that have been made and other things. But the challenge also is that, when you have a living donor, it's a very much complicated story. With MacArthur and Ford Foundation and Rockefeller, we really don't have much.
Yeah, they are all dead.
They are all gone.
They made lots of money, but foundations become prominent after their deaths.
But when you have a living donor, I think that is also has its own
kinds of ties
to
the hands of even the foundation, because he may be the one giving direction that
what to be done,
exactly.
So that is, I think, part of the major challenges of when you have a living donor. How do you the person will probably determine how the resource should be spent, how it should not be spent, and the person may have his or her own fancies at some moments, and maybe different other moments. So I think that the challenge is always that when you have a living donor, I think that is a bit much more problematic compared to the foundations like MacArthur or Ford or Rockefeller, whose families are not engaged currently in running the organization, and therefore there is a scope of an independent decision making as to what should be the program of the foundations and other things. But I think it's good that we have Nigerians now. Imokode has his foundation.
The person involved in
Access Bank.
That's all the big moneyed people. Are setting up. It's fashionable. Is it because it's fashionable, or you think because of the tax breaks?
Well, I hope it is not because they are doing it because of passion. I hope they believe actually in something.
Tenu Elumelu also, man behind
UBA
has his own foundation.
And the Nikon Hilton here, Transcorp here, and others. So we see all this evolution of foundations that I think for me is very positive, because one of the things that I think in a society is you want a caring society. A society that cares for its people. And caring for people does not necessarily mean only from government, but there are people in society that also care for other people who are less privileged.
Especially when they have made money in some ways, to say, at the expense of the rest of the society, because if the larger society doesn't exist, maybe they wouldn't have made so much money.
Well, I wouldn't say whether it is at the expense of other people or not, but what I know definitely is that there is no doubt that if you look at the background of most rich people, they have done things that probably today will be very critical of them. either program they were selling cigarette, for example, or they were selling beer or whatever.
Or even arms.
Or arms, yes, or arms. And I think they're doing
because
that.
Because the foundation behind the Nobel Prize
exactly
dealt in arms.
Arms, yeah. But now they have now, can we say, repent and now doing the good things and other things. So I think in some ways, I think Marx was the one who said that, the origin of all wealth is theft. So I wouldn't say, I wouldn't make that kind of statement in terms of
statement.
But I think that if you look at the origin of many of these people and what they have done when they were alive and other things, there are things that now will be very critical of them. But fortunately, they have now turned their own whatever wealth in order to do something good for society. And I think that is very important.
I think we'll continue talking about doing good to the society when we come back from this short break. Viewers, it is 30 Minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television, and our guest today is Dr. Kole Shettima, the Africa Director of MacArthur Foundation.
We started manufacturing leather since 1958. But the most important thing is that if the system is checked correctly, we won't have where we are now.
If somebody has depression, they may just be very irritable and unproductive in the office. So you find on average already about 1 in 4, 1 in 5 Nigerians already have a mental illness, a mental health condition that needs some form of attention.
No matter how good an economy is, if the federal government goes bust, believe me, everything in the economy is just a matter of time it will go bust. So first of all, about maybe slightly below 70% is in federal government securities.
If government has banned importation of fertilizer and states are doing it at the level of governance, but I believe that production and distribution of fertilizer should be left to the private sector.
This is the general multi-purpose card, and it has a chip here. So this chip is about 80 kilobytes. The one that you get from the bank for ATM is just 4 kilobytes. So this is like 20 times.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it is 30 Minutes, the interactive program of Trust Television, and our guest today is Dr. Kole Shettima, the Africa Director of MacArthur Foundation. Will you say, Kole, that the Nigerian setup and culture, does it support more of such foundations to be set up? Or is it just a passing fad that will soon fizzle out?
Well, I hope it is not a fad. I hope that as more people become resourceful in other things, I hope that people will be able to come into it. But I think that government can also be of help in doing this kind of work. For example, looking at our rules, our regulations, especially around tax and incentives and other things, I hope that there will be an effort on the part of government to see how can we support philanthropic endeavors in our country by giving them a number of incentives in terms of either tax breaks, either in terms of giving them even some institutional support or whatever it is that we need to do, or some regulations and I think that we can put in place to enable our wealthy people in order to establish those foundations and other things. And I think that as we are thinking about those foundations, we also don't have to think only about what Dangote or Abdul Samad or any of those, or T.Y. Nanjuma or Aikomo or Tony Elumelu and of that, but also let's think about, in communities, there are many community foundations that can be established, whereby communities can pull their own resources in order for them to do what they want to do and other things. I remember there was the River State Community Foundation, which was essentially meant for the people of River and established by individuals in River State to come together to pull their own resources to do that and other things. And I think it is possible that in many places that we can have those one. It doesn't have to be established by one person or owned by one person, but communities can establish their own foundations.
I know there are some like that. There was the Katsina Foundation. At one time, I think General Muhammadu Buhari, former president, was heading it.
Yes.
There was also the Kano Foundation,
yes,
and maybe a number of others. But you find that they are more like government-driven, and that the local notables don't seem to take full ownership of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they are structure it in terms of investing, whether there is careful investment that continues to get some benefit and continue to allow the foundations to run.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that, we had this wave, actually, there was a wave of these, places where all those foundations were being established. And unfortunately, I think they were not well managed. In terms of the investments that we're supposed to be making in order to generate more resources and other things, in terms of also selecting people who should actually run the place and other things. Our society is very conscious of titles, and therefore people think that if you are a general or if you are this and that, then probably you're able to do certain things. But a general is supposed to be in the army, actually, should be in the bush and to be fighting people and not to be managing people's money and other things, because that's not what the person knows and other things. So I think that is certainly part of the challenge that we have in terms of our ability to manage the local little resources that we have in such a way that to become more sustainable to do what we want to do in other things. As you are aware, the 19 governors of northern Nigeria also established the Ahmadu Bello Memorial Foundation, whereby the 19 governors, 19 states were supposed to contribute, I believe, I can't remember the amount of money each to do it. Some actually governments did that. There are some governors up to now, governments have not yet fulfilled their own pledge and other thing. And so therefore now the resources is now being managed. And I think that the management of the resources, I will say that, in terms of investment and other things, I think it's doing very well. There's no problem with that one. Yeah.
But sometimes you see that the officials also are kind of almost, should I say, living big.
Yeah.
So they are like other government officials. They must have a 4x4 SUV and what have you. So those tends to suck up much of the resources and leave very little for the purpose of.
Well, you remember the story of Warren Buffett, who is one of the most wealthiest persons in the world, who has a foundation and things. And then, he entered to this plane. He was in economy class, and though he saw that his own staff were in business class, so the question.
My goodness. And this is a man who has been living in the same house, I understand, since 1954.
Exactly, and he really didn't care about all these trappings of power or wealth or any of those kind of things, because for them it's just this is service. It's a cause for them. It's a service to them. It's not a job. It's not a job for them, it's not a profession for them, but they have committed themselves to doing good thing for society, and that's why they established this organization. So I think that foundations and organizations run into the problem sometimes, whereby that the overhead cost of what is being spent in taking care of the officials and vis-a-vis what is actually being spent in terms of the people, you find that there is a wide gap in that one. But I guess if you look at the Nigerian government's overhead cost vis-a-vis what the rest of us are getting, you can see why this, because as you know, maybe 80% of our budget goes to take care of all the people in Abuja, the big people of Abuja. Abuja, well, the rest of the public, will get 20% of whatever they get. So I think there's a major challenge there.
Talking about service, I know that the MacArthur Foundation supports lots of areas, including the media.
Yeah.
Because I know that even the Daily Trust Foundation is getting support to do trainings and support journalism and what have you. What are the other areas that you are involved in Nigeria, and what tune of money are we talking about?
Okay, so the general frame of our work is around anti-corruption and accountability. That's the frame we have. Then how do we do it? Now, you have mentioned one of them, which is how do we support independent journalism? How do we support investigative journalism? Because we know it costs a lot of money. We know, as we all know, that the media in the world, throughout the world, is going through a major, major difficulty and challenge. We know that in order to really do an independent journalism, you need resources. We also believe that independent editorial is related to independent financial resources. So that's why in our country you hear Governor of the Year award and you be scratching your head. Hello, who is this person?
Exactly.
No.
And it's the journalists who are supposed to report
exactly.
the person that are giving those awards.
Those awards and other things, But we understand that, many of these, unfortunately, many of our publications really depend upon government houses. If a government house turns up the tap, so to speak, those papers will go down and other things. So I think that's one of the realization that we said that, look, if you want to fight corruption and hold people accountable, especially those who are duty bearers, you must give support support to independent journalism and other things. So that's what takes out there. The second one is our support for behavioral change. Now,
what does that mean?
Behavioral change means that our values, our attitude, our relationship with people in society.
The way we sometimes celebrate very corrupt people and protect them, that they are our sons. How can you say they have stolen?
Exactly. And also the fact that toward the end of colonial rule, Kirk Green wrote this book, Why Mutumin Kirki in Hausa land. He just went around and asking, why Mutumin Kirki? Just simple asking. They said the teacher, they said the judge.
The good man.
Who is a good man? Who is among the Hausa society? Yes. They take the teacher, the judge, and the traditional institutions. If you now go to our society
and do the same research,
who will ever tell you that a teacher is a good person? They will not tell you that, because the teacher have not been paid for the last 1 year. And even when he's paid, if you look at just the way he looks like and other things, nobody wants to be a teacher. The only reason why you want to be a teacher is when you don't have a job. Teaching is a job when there is no any other job. So the value and orientation of our society has so much changed. So we are asking ourselves, who do we celebrate in our society as a good person? How can you people in the media and the rest people in the like in Nollywood, Kannywood, and all the films and other things, how do we celebrate good people? There was this woman who returned the $80,000 in Sokoto. How many of us know this woman? How many of us talk about them?
Or the boy in Kano who returned over 11 million in Sefa to a passenger on his keke.
So how do we celebrate these people are good so that we can see our role models? It's not Yahoo boys just because they have gone and stolen people's money, or some politicians who have gone and stolen money and now driving in all kind of cars. We should never be celebrating those. So that's one aspect of the behavioral change. The other one is about faith. We are asking our faith leaders, every one of us, Nigerians, we claim that we are Muslims, so we are Christians. But and we begin meetings with opening prayer and closing prayer.
And then do the exact opposite in all between. Our conduct.
Exactly. Yes. So what is our faith saying? What does our faith say? And especially also when remember that when you are going to take public office, I think that those things that they wear.
They swear with the Quran or the Bible.
Well, at least we see that they are putting something. We don't. Yes. I hope there is a Quran and I hope there is a Bible inside it or not. But we make all this swearing answers. So we are discussing. We are asking our faith leaders, what is your own role? Because these people that you are supposed to tell them the truth, to speak truth to the power, sometimes are the one that you are giving blessings to, because they cut all of them, go to Jerusalem, go to Mecca, go and pray for them, but they know that these people are doing bad things. So I think that's what we're asking ourselves, what is the role of faith in anti-corruption and accountability? So that is behavioral change.
Very good point to end this particular conversation. Probably we'll have to invite you and carry on with the conversation again. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Dr. Kole Shettima.
Thank you very much, Munir, as well, for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, viewers. That is the end of this edition of 30 Minutes. Keep a date with us.